Flying Joe. Know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 704?
Correct.
That sounds good.
A milestone.
Indeed, a milestone.
Yes. Bidets, bidets, bidets.
Well done.
Thank you. Which is just a warning, also the name of the porn parody.
Perfect.
Oh.
So,
Spelled differently, but the
Yeah.
pronunciation is awfully
right.
similar.
I mean, maybe it's a warning. Maybe it's a selling point.
It could be.
No judgment.
We'll wait and see.
We're not here to kink shame.
No. Oh,
So-
never.
No, I mean,
Never.
it's not like it's
Not-
hiding it. It's like if you're they're telling you.
It's right there on Front Street.
Right.
And, well, I guess more like Back Street.
Backstreet.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's back.
All right.
There. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
So I guess before I forget, let's go around the table and everyone can introduce themselves.
This is Joe.
This is Kevin.
And this is Tom. Well, before we dig in, let's just do shameless plugs. Let's just be really efficient.
Let's do it.
Shameless plugs. Don't
impressive.
forget, we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find a podcast, you can find us. While you're there, be sure and follow us. So you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. That's always helpful. Maybe not always, but sometimes.
It depends on what the review is, I guess.
So we have a new review.
We do. Coming from iTunes, this is from Plugger603. This show is 5 stars. This show is great. The 3 hosts are very entertaining. but
Perfect.
do
Well,
have
thank you very much, Plugger. That was a really nice review.
I think there's more.
There might be a little bit.
Okay.
But they do have some quirks. Joe compares everything to a DC comic or movie and can get on nerves. Sorry. Also, Kevin, who is gay, is great. Yet he believes he knows all sometimes and comes off like a prince.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Tom is by far the best and the funniest. He brings the whole thing together. So, despite sometimes annoyance, the show is tremendous. That is just a whirlwind.
Wow.
Yeah.
If there's ever
that is a
been-
roller coaster of emotions.
So was that your alt account or Crystal's account?
I don't care enough. So I guess the question really is, Kevin, does your wife know?
Well, not until she reads the review. I didn't even know until I read the review, but that's eye-opening. Hey, thanks.
That's but it's just
I
like
meant the part about me being the best and funniest.
yeah, what were you talking about?
You know what? That's the thing. I bring this energy. I'm a very happy guy. I bring it every morning that we record.
Referring
I'm
to you
glad
as a
that.
prince is that's a strange one.
Yeah, I know. A prince.
A prince. And
Okay.
also, it's not just DC Comics, by the way.
There's also wrestling.
And Marvel.
Okay.
And
And
maybe-
occasionally Image.
Occasionally, maybe a Dark Horse will swing in there every once in a
Right.
while.
Yeah. We also have a Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
Facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. The group is called the League of Show Shares because we're hoping maybe you'll share an episode. People who were kind enough to share an episode last week include David Rojas, Librarian Cynthia, Julianne Jordan, Christopher Rex, Ralph Tribble, Josh Rosen, Gabriel Lugo, Heather Sachs, Brent Smith, Travis Tewitt, Tammy Lynn Powers Betts, Chris Valls, Chris Williams, Elle Is Not Well, Invasion of the Remake, Minorities Report, Megan Kearns, Spoiler Piece Theater, In Session Film, Nostalgia Cast, Colby Mack, Ryan Terry from the Forza Crowd podcast, Geek to Me Radio, Matt Naglia, Ronnie Castle, Feelin' Film, Binge Movies, Mike, and Oscar, and Linda Wright. So thank you very much. And finally, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Real Spoilers, where for $5 a month, you get all sorts of bonus content, extra Matt Bassler, and we like you more.
Yes. The Army of Darkness episode is done in the can. I had a personal thing
That
happen.
sounds painful.
It was last week, so we didn't get to do the remake yet, but that will be done this week. We'll be recording the episode. Also, if you ever check out Binge Movies, I am going to be on there. I'm recording a couple
This isn't
episodes.
Plugs at the end.
Well, I want to do it in case they don't listen all the way to the end.
This
you
is
know
the
what I mean?
Real Spoilers plug
I
section.
know, but in case they don't get there.
They don't listen to the whole thing? What?
Yeah, I know. Right. 2 episodes. I'm not going to tell you what they are. They'll be surprise episodes. But I'm recording 2 episodes with Jason this week as well.
2?
So
And 2
well,
more?
No, just 1 with Matt, and then 2 with Jason.
Oh, okay. Still.
Yeah, it's a busy week. I'm trying to catch up on stuff that I unfortunately had to delay because of COVID and vacation, and then something else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's all that. I guess let's dig into Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
If you have not seen this movie, you should probably see it first.
It's
if you're
worth
planning
seeing
on it
unspoiled.
before you
Yes,
listen.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Well, if you've seen my tweet,
I did not.
look.
The tweet that took the world by storm.
Yeah, by getting 2 likes and a comment.
One was me.
Doing better than me.
It's like, okay, was this supposed to be making fun? What generation is this? Because this isn't millennials, right? Like this is the generation.
Gen Z.
Okay, so is this making fun of Gen Z, or is this like we're making a movie for Gen
This
Z?
is a satire
I think
of Gen
it's a
Z.
little bit of both.
Okay.
I think it's. I think it's supposed to be relatable for Gen Z.
but
I
it
think
can also poke fun at them.
right, but
Yeah.
it's a satire. I won't say make fun because I think the way this film is handled is with love. I do not think that this is a mean-spirited attack of Gen Z is just horrible. I think that the director is making observations.
Is the director Gen Z?
No,
know?
she's older.
Okay.
I'm not saying old, but I mean she's
No,
older.
okay.
Helena Range. This is her first American film. All right.
Woohoo!
And that was something off mic.
Yeah.
And
I think my wife just got a shout out on a Peloton.
there you go. But this is her third feature and her first American film.
Okay.
But she's an actor. She has 69 credits, so
Okay.
she.
It's her own fault. She should have
do
gotten
more,
one.
do less.
She should have gotten one more acting credit before
This episode.
before she directed a film.
She was born in 75, so
Oh,
older
she's-
than
yeah.
us, and maybe not as old as
Not as old as me.
Yeah. So anyway, for the
He's
age,
5 years younger than me. For those of you,
What
keeping
about the
score.
writer? I just feel like there's a pretty good. The reason I ask is because I feel like there is a pretty good understanding of Gen Z and like that world.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
So
And I guess you could do your research, but
story by Kristen Rupenian and Sarah DeLapp. So
Okay.
2 different people wrote it.
She was born in '82.
okay, so
The story by credit.
she's an
Okay.
elder millennial because I was born in '82.
Right.
Okay.
And then Sarah DeLapp. I don't see an age on her.
Okay.
But you're
it's-
right. But I do think it feels believable. So clearly the writers know the way
Yeah.
that different people in Gen Z act and different like archetypes or different, that kind of thing.
Not even archetypes, but just I feel like okay, and I don't mean this to be mean. Everybody in this movie feels just so vapid. Like there's a comment at one point about a character not having their own thought in their own head. Like
Yeah.
everything is based off what they read on TikTok or Twitter or whatever. And I feel like the characters are all like that,
Oh, I did.
but I don't know if that's.
Oh, I did.
Thank you. Okay.
All no, but I mean not
I
as
felt-
much as the Rachel Sennott.
I mean,
character.
Some are worse than others.
Some are worse than others, but yeah, they're all pretty. But
But
they
I thought they were all
but it's all-
diversified enough.
But it's a very specific type of.
Yes.
Right, they all come from money,
Yeah.
essentially. Right,
And yeah,
they're all kids that have money and don't have to work for it, except for one.
except for one. And
Yeah.
and we'll get into that because I have questions about that.
But
character.
watching this film, I could tell each character apart. Like, but by
That's
being
fair.
introduced
Yes.
to them quickly, I
Yeah.
could figure out that this is the social media person. This is just the rich person. Just like Pete Davidson was just clearly the rich
the rich guy.
show
was
off.
The richest of all of them.
Yeah,
Yes.
there wasn't. Yeah, his.
They're all
Well, aren't-
doing fine.
Aren't
but
he and like Sophia on the same level? Like, don't they say that?
They say her house is bigger. Yeah,
Yeah.
her parents' house is bigger, but they're the richest of
Yeah,
them
yeah,
all,
yeah, yeah.
and they're best friends too. So
Yeah.
you could just kind of figure out. And then there was the one that was kind of the outlier that wasn't really like a newer part of the group, and we eventually learned like the big insult is they're upper middle class.
Right.
And I was like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah,
That's
and
me.
and so but you could tell all the characters apart. There's the actor, so you could see what each of them had going on,
Yeah.
and then obviously Greg, played by
But
Lee
the-
Pace, is just totally
the
out.
upper
He's my
middle
favorite part
the
of the
upper
movie.
middle class insult was interesting because it was a double it worked on 2 levels, right? They
She
were saying
wanted to
she
become
was
from
on
rags
the
to riches,
one hand
yeah.
they're saying you're not as rich as us, but on the other hand they're calling her out for portraying herself as working
as-
class.
Right. When you're really.
When she's really upper middle class.
Yeah.
Compared to them, she doesn't have as much money.
Sure.
But compared to the rest of the world, she's doing fine.
Yes.
She
exactly.
wants to be a self-starter, but she's not. She had upper middle class
Right.
help. So you could tell, I think that's a testament to the writing because I could tell all of them apart. There's not a lot of characters in the scheme of things because there's like 8 people in this movie, but to be thrown into here's 8 characters, we get to know them pretty quickly and understand what their thing is. So we should go through the cast. I think there's a lot of good actors in this and people that you'd know from other stuff probably. Amanda Stenberg was in the Hate You Give. You've got, of course, Maria Bakalova, who was in Borat subsequent movie film.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
You didn't see Borat too?
No.
You should.
Oh, really?
She's
It's
the one that
really
was with
good.
Rudy in the hotel room.
Oh, I mean, I know that scene.
Yeah, but that's her.
Okay.
It's way better than it has any right to be.
Okay.
Totally worth watching.
Okay, I'll give it a go.
She's a really good actor, and the guts that it took to do the stuff that she did. I mean, if you're Sacha Baron Cohen, 1 in a billion, like, we get it. That's your thing, and you've been doing that for years. But this actor, she's fairly new. I mean, new to the scene as far as we know, and she goes in there and does stuff and is able to hold her own and is believable. And I mean, she pulls off Borat stuff like easily, and she also has there's a dramatic arc for her character.
Oh, okay.
In the film, and so she's really good. But I was excited to see her do something else, and it's like, she's not just the girl from Borat. It's like she's going to get some good roles, and she can act for sure. Rachel Sennott, who is in a movie called Shiva Baby. Did either of you see that?
No.
Watch it. It's on HBO Max. It is so good. It's about a girl who, it kind of feels like who's the main character in this movie?
I don't know who the main
Sophia?
character is in this movie.
I mean, I think that's one of the things, right? Like, I think Sophie is kind of, she's the one who's front and center.
Yeah.
But I feel like
It's probably
B,
but
is
Yeah.
also.
but
kind
there
of
isn't
the
an obvious. I don't think an obvious like lead
final girl
character in this movie.
Yeah, there's not a character that we follow all the way through.
Yeah, so I would definitely agree it's B, but you kind of start off following Sophie like it's going to be her movie and kind of ends up being B, but the two of them kick off the movie.
And they end the movie.
Yeah, right, exactly. So Rachel Sennott is in this movie called Shiva Baby, and it's kind of similar to how Sophie's coming back home to this group, but she's been kind of gone, and there's something awkward about her coming back.
Yeah.
They're sitting Shiva at a funeral, a Jewish
I
funeral.
gotcha.
Afterwards, and so all the family and friends are there, but there's some awkward relationships. There's an ex there, and so there's this awkward thing of being at this Shiva, and it's just like a contained. It's pretty much all takes place there, but all the familial relationships and the friends and the ex are there, and a bunch of drama starts happening. And I will tell you, I felt more anxious. This is not a knock on this movie, but I felt more anxious in Shiva Baby than I did in this, which is like supposed to be kind of a horror film.
Right.
It is so stressful and anxiety inducing from her point of view of all the things she has to deal with, these awkward family, being at like a reunion
It's like
type
watching
situation.
The Bear. Did you watch that?
I haven't watched that yet.
Jeepers.
Is that a
Creepers.
stressful
It's-
one?
Oh man,
What
and it's
movie?
The Bear.
The
on-
TV show.
I haven't watched it.
I think it's great, but it's same deal. Like when they start getting into like service, you're just like, nope, I could
Yeah.
never work in a restaurant. Like this is too much.
So
it's really good.
Seriously though, watch Shiva Baby. I love that movie. It is so good. It's on HBO Max. Pete Davidson's in it. So of
Are you
course
sure it's still on HBO Max?
yeah. Someone mentioned it the other day, so it should still be there. And it's not an original either. So they seem to only like to cut their content.
Yeah,
they
the ones
own,
that
which
they
is like,
own,
what?
Which
Yeah.
makes no sense.
None
but
whatsoever.
enough of that.
And then Lee Pace plays Greg, who's like a late 30s, early 40s something old, who's dating Rachel Sennett's character,
That's right.
who's a social media influencer. So she's dating this older guy, and we'll get into their relationship a little bit later.
I
But
keep
he's
forgetting that he is from Guardians of the Galaxy.
he's
Like
Lord of the Rings.
He's the bad guy
He's
from
in
all right.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Which Lord of the Rings?
The
Hobbit, right?
The Hobbit ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that doesn't count.
He's one of the elf, one of the elven leaders. So anyway, you've got him, who's definitely an outsider, and then Mayala Harold, who is one of the friends. She's the upper middle class girl, and then Emma is played by Chase C. Wonders, who is
She's like the actress. Yeah.
And then we hear about Max, and we don't see much of him, but we hear that there's been an altercation between Max and Pete
We
Davidson's
see that
character.
there's been an altercation because
Well-
Pete Davidson's face is bruised up.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we hear that it's because of this guy Max who left in a rage. So they do set up several red herrings at the beginning of this movie,
Yeah.
which doesn't get right into the craziness, but they're setting up all these people who could be causing the trouble.
Right. And it's, we've had a couple movies like this recently. I was thinking of like Ready or Not and You're Next, where they kind of have these self-contained, not really whodunits, but like murder horror movies contained in this house.
It reminded me of Ready or Not a lot.
Yeah.
With the setting of being in the big house and the crazy
It's
violent
a
stuff
chamber
going
piece.
Ooh, good. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
on. But being in the rich people mansion house, like the setting
Well, and then
definitely
you've got the
reminded
girl
me.
who's not from that
the outsider
world.
girl, exactly.
Yeah,
And not
right,
to
right,
say it's a
right.
copy, and Ready or Not's great, and I really enjoyed this one, but it was kind of giving me those vibes. This movie to me was like a mix of maybe Ready or Not and an Agatha Christie movie. It's definitely turns into a whodunit type thing.
Yeah,
More
yeah.
so than it's a slasher movie. It's more of a whodunit.
I would not call this a slasher. I'm again hesitant to call it a horror movie because I mean, I guess kinda thriller. I guess would be more appropriate than a horror movie. Like this, that's kind of A24's jam at this point. Is like they have figured out like this weird blend of
Horror adjacent.
yeah, and I hate the term elevated horror, but like horror adjacent, right? Like Hereditary and
I
Midsommar
don't.
and
All the other horror you like is trash.
you aren't wrong.
I prefer. I don't. I think there instead of elevated horror, there should be like horror
yes.
and then trash horror.
There's a middle ground, right? Like there's some horror flicks that aren't trash, but aren't like, you know, they don't
Artsy,
raise.
fartsy.
Yes, they're like right
Yeah.
there in the middle. Yeah, I will say 2022 has been a pretty good year for horror, and it looks like it might be a good year towards the tail end too. Yeah, so all of this, so Sophie and B show up at this massive like home. It is kind of weird how this movie starts is with B and Sophie pretty much going at it.
Mhm.
It
And
lingers on that. Like
a little long. Like I thought it was like I'm like
I don't
this
really
is a little long.
know what it establishes by lingering that long.
I mean, you can, yeah. I mean, it's a director's choice, right? Like,
yeah,
it's however you want to do it.
It's a female writer and director, so it's not like it's a pervy middle-aged guy that wants to make these two
Sure.
actresses go at it. So I'm
don't
like, we've established this. Why are we still here?
You're trying to get her off. I get it.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Their relationship is very odd to me. Like, and I can't determine if it's because B is weird, and I don't mean like the character is very weird,
Yeah.
and standoffish and kind of closed and mousy, where Sophie is not.
Yeah.
Like Sophie's very out and loud and boisterous. And
I don't think she's weird. I think she's foreign, so I think there's some kind of a language barrier there. She definitely speaks with her, like the actor
sure.
speaks with an accent.
Is that her
so-
actual accent, or
Yeah.
is she? Okay.
I believe so.
Okay.
So I think she, being foreign, she still has that kind of language barrier type thing. And also, this is another red herring. Is B being quiet
Sure.
because it's a contemplative, I'm gonna be murdering people kind of thing. And so on purpose, they kind of they want you to be kind of thrown off by
I think
her.
that's fair. Also, the whole thing with like the phone around her neck, like
Yeah.
that was odd, and talking to her mom. I was
Because
like,
you wonder, is she talking
to her mom?
Is she talking to her mom? Is she talking to Max, who's not there? Are they orchestrating something? Is this the two killer scream type thing?
I was like, you went scream with it. All right.
Right. So,
yeah.
but that's the thing. I think what's kind of brilliant about this movie is what the audience projects onto these characters and brings to this situation, because it's really interesting where it ends up. And I don't think we should spoil that yet. But
No, we'll get there.
I think that it's really interesting, all the things you bring, and you're like, oh, it could be this. Oh, but who is
because
that?
you're doing the same thing they're doing.
Yes, you get to play
Yeah.
along,
Right.
and it's really fun. And this movie, which I think the ending that we'll get to, what elevates it, is that this is a really hard one to call. And I think that's impressive because we've seen so many
it's a
horror
really hard
movies.
it's a really hard ending to call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that we've seen so many movies, for them to actually pull something different and
Yeah.
trick us when they're throwing out all these quote unquote clues that are there,
Right.
but you're piecing them together, and I would guarantee most people don't get it. And I'm like, I was impressed. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, when we get there, I didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, all
And
right.
it makes total sense.
total sense.
Like, it doesn't feel like you got cheated.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, that's on brand.
Right.
Especially considering the actor they cast.
Also correct.
Yeah.
Also, did they digitally take out all of his tattoos?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
All
I didn't know
he has
this.
no tattoos.
Probably
in this
makeup.
movie. Oh, probably.
Probably
That's
just
fair.
makeup.
That's fair. And I was like,
You
why
can
would
cover up tattoos
but
with
I'm like,
makeup
why would
pretty
they
well.
do that? But
Because he's a rich.
Well, the
kid,
other
not a-
thing is, remember the whole Mike Tyson thing when that tattoo artist sued.
Oh,
The
you might have to pay for
hangover
some of those
people?
designs.
Yeah.
That could
And
be
I've seen his
possible.
tattoos. They probably didn't cost much, but so we get to the house and people. It's interesting because everybody's underwater, and this is where I'm talking about. Where I was just like, I don't like any of these people. And
I
then
think that's
realized,
okay.
I think that's the point.
You're not
for
supposed
me,
to
right?
relate.
Like,
Most people are not supposed to relate to
Right.
this lifestyle. These are rich people, and even the least rich, not including B because she's an outsider, but even the least rich, the upper middle class, she's still a richy rich type person. So you're not supposed to relate to them. And I think it's also like for older people in our generation, we're also like, oh, these Gen Zers, because the way they act. But again, I don't think the movie treats them mean. I think that it's a pretty accurate representation of some Gen Z.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of Gen Z people are going to relate to them, but
Sure.
it's also like these characters are in a different world to where most people are not in that world. So
Right.
you still have some kind of like an outsider feel, even if you're in that age group, 'cause you're like, well, that's not me. I'm not the rich social media. I'm on social media, but I'm not like taking my every vacation photo or whatever. So you still have that kind of outside poking at that.
Yeah. So Sophie shows up, and some people are like happy to see her. The character
Rachel Sennott pretty much is
very happy to see her there, but she's another one where I'm like, there's nothing to like. Everything she said, she will agree with whoever is talking.
Yeah,
she's very social media.
She has a podcast.
That vapid that you say, that character is very much to where when she's like, oh, Sophie. I didn't necessarily believe she was happy to see her because it seemed like you said she's like that to everyone. She's just kind of the neutral. She's Switzerland, she's just like tries to be friendly with everyone.
Just goes along with whatever. Yeah. But it seems like there is a underlying thing where everybody else except for Greg, who is just this just ridiculous character, that they don't want her there, or maybe she's not welcome. Maybe they don't want her, but there's tension. There's tension
for sure
among everybody. And Sophie.
She shows up unannounced, and we as the audience don't know why that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe it's just me. I didn't feel like I got a pretty good idea of what happened other than she went to rehab. Is that it? Like, did I miss something else?
Well, her friends were worried about her dying constantly, and then they put her in rehab to save her life, basically, and then she didn't talk to any of them for a long time after. So it's just like you ghosted us.
Okay.
Like we saved your life. You were a constant burden of worry and everything. And like we care about you, and we ended up having to. Basically, she told Sophie's parents that she was doing all these drugs and stuff.
That's right.
The parents cut her off from all money and everything, and so she's kind of mad at them, even though they were saving her life, and then didn't talk to them. So there's that tension of like, we did this to help you. You guys screwed me over, and those two conflicting things.
I got you.
Okay, how it is when your friends do something
for,
for you, but then you're like, I can't believe you would betray me, and
they do something. Okay. That makes sense. She being Sophie has this conversation with Pete Davidson, and we kind of find out that there's a little bit of like turmoil there between Pete Davidson's character and Emma.
And they're supposed to be best friends, Sophie and David.
But do they feel like best friends to you, or do they just feel like two people in a room?
I think they feel like best friends who one thinks the other betrayed her.
Okay.
There's I think once they get to talking in his dad's office, I do think they get more back into their old thing. But the thing is, again, all these characters are mad at each other. And Emma, Pete Davidson's girlfriend, is talking in his ear the whole time. Why is she invited? Like, he's kind of being influenced to be mad at her when he's her best friend and doesn't really want to be.
I guess. But then you've got Emma and Pete Davidson going on where there was an incident with this character, Matt, right? Was it Matt?
Max is the other friend that left, yeah.
Where the big reveal is that Max is in love with Emma, and
they were doing shrooms, and so Max let it slip.
No, I think the other friend let it slip. The vapid girl.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, that's the thing.
I
about
thought
her,
Max
right?
professed his love.
No, the vapid girl is constantly just saying stuff.
Because we see that later when she leaks something. Okay,
she's just constantly
Either way,
running her mouth.
It gets leaked out. That would make sense, but it gets leaked out that Max is in love with Emma, and so of course David's not very happy with that.
Right,
and then starts, and also we see David has this kind of inferiority complex because this is his house, and he's one of the richest of the friends, and he's had all these friends who are girls, and he's been kind of the only guy as a part of the group. And then all of a sudden you get these other guys, and so Max comes in and says, "I'm in love with your girlfriend." And then right after that, Greg, the 6'5", ripped, extremely handsome Lee Pace comes in. Oh, maybe I am. Never mind.
Yeah.
So he comes in, and it's like, dude, what are you doing here? And I love how funny was that writing when Sophie and David are in David's dad's office, and he's kicking back and talking, and they're talking about Greg, and he's like, he's not even handsome. Like, I think I'm handsome. And they're going through all his looks, and they basically end up landing on, he's like, yeah, Greg's very handsome. But the whole Pete Davidson convincing himself that he's better looking than
Right, trying to convince himself
Greg.
that he's better looking than Greg.
That was a funny conversation.
No, I agree.
I like,
But
the
it's also
writing.
funny because from a meta standpoint, I'm like, okay, Greg's better looking, but based on results,
let's look at Pete Davidson's track history.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Well, if we were talking Pete Davidson,
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So David lives in rich guy. I can just get whatever I want because I'm rich land.
right,
And so he has confidence from money.
yeah.
And that's the difference between
His confidence is store bought.
right, where
exactly,
Pete
exactly.
Davidson has the real deal, right? He
Yeah.
can pull all these, these tens, these models, these actors because of his personality, and he's funny. But David, on the other hand, is just like, yeah, why wouldn't anyone love me? I'm rich,
Yeah.
which is obviously a very vapid,
Yes.
crazy way to live your life. But that's the character. But I thought that was very funny, and I think there's a lot of funny writing. I also wonder. I felt like I could relate to these characters more than maybe you did, and I'm guessing maybe Tom could a little, not because of our age, but because we have teenage kids. And I feel like I kind of hear the way they talk
Yeah.
and the way they act sometimes,
sure,
the
sure,
music
sure.
they listen to. So your kids aren't as old yet.
No.
So it's just, I think
Thanks
that,
to earbuds, I never hear the music they listen
yeah,
to.
but that's,
It's a blessing.
Yes.
but I kind of feel like I knew this world, even though I personally
Sure.
don't live in it, but through my son, who's a teenager now, and these kids are obviously a little bit older. They're like 18 or
20. Well, they have
you
to be
know.
older than that.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
early to mid 20s.
late high school to early college, whatever, that kind of age. So, but they're still
No,
in
I think they're
I
all in college because they referenced that B said she went to Utah State.
yeah.
So they figured they have to all be in college.
I
or at
figured they
least
were.
graduated.
I think they were just post college.
Yeah.
Is
Just
what
post-college.
where I
Yeah, okay.
landed on.
So early 20s.
It's hard to gauge because in a high school movie they would use the exact same actors.
Exactly.
Right,
So like
yeah.
so you're. I mean, I spent a good chunk of the film trying to be like, how old are these people?
I think with the exception of Pete Davidson and Lee Pace, I think we're all looking at like early to mid 20s.
yeah.
But
That's where I
character-wise,
was.
Pete Davidson, I guess, is probably
yeah,
mid 20s.
actor-wise. But see, I didn't want to just presume because I'm like, well, these are all, they'll be playing young high school, college kids for the next 10 years. They're
Right.
all
Yeah,
the
right,
youthful
right,
actors
right.
that can play down. It's not a bad thing.
Who
but,
was the kid from Swim Fan?
oh my gosh, Jesse Bradford.
Bradford, who was
From Hackers,
perpetually
Swim Fan, Bring It On.
junior
He
and
was-
senior in high school when he was 40.
I know. And I mean,
His generation's Ralph Macchio.
yeah, right.
nothing against him, and I like a lot of those movies. That is funny. I would always think for the longest
It's
time.
true.
It was
I
like,
went with
oh,
Swim Fan when he was in
Yeah.
Bring It On. Like
But-
that's the
high school actor Jesse Bradford, and then finally, I remember when like he got other roles. I was like, okay, he's finally out. But that's the thing is that I didn't want to presume because I'm like, okay, they're young kids, so I don't know. But either way, it's like I've got a teenager, and so these kids are maybe somewhere within a decade,
Yeah.
and they talk the same way. They watch the same TikTok videos. It's that generation. You kind of get a feel for it. So when I was watching this movie, I didn't go, I am so far removed, I can't relate. Like because
I really like. Yeah, there were parts where I was like, I am struggling.
right.
Yeah.
It's so, and it's not a bad thing. I just mean I think Tom and I maybe are introduced to some of the lingo
That's fair.
or the
I
way
think
they act.
that's fair.
And so when I was watching this, I'm like, yep, that's how kids are. I didn't go
Yeah.
like, what is going on here? I'm like, yeah, there they are.
Yeah,
that
yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so it's just interesting where I didn't feel maybe as out of place, even though, of course, by age I am.
Right.
But yeah.
I thought you were gonna say it's because you and Tom were cooler than me.
Well, there's
Well,
that.
basically,
Right,
yeah, I
right.
didn't want
That's
to say
fair.
that. I wanted to
I
make
appreciate that.
the whole
Thank you.
story for
Yeah,
you.
no, that's good. Thanks. Thanks. This whole group just seems like they're, I don't know, just doesn't seem like a cohesive group of friends, right? Like everybody's kind of picking at everybody else, different people for different things. So you've got the upper middle class girl who kind of is taking shots at B, but also kind of taking like
Clearly, there's tension between Sophie's character and Jordan.
Jordan.
There's clearly
there's
tension.
something, but it's like it's not it is mean, but it's almost like it's when a kid has a crush on another kid and they don't know how to like deal with it yet. It's like that kind of mean.
And
you know what I
we-
mean?
We find out later that
There's a reason.
things didn't work between them. They were like
Is that right? Like
they could never make it work.
I just thought
and
they hooked up.
They did, but to me it sounded like from some of the lines they dropped that they said, because one of them says there's a reason why it would never work between us or something. I
okay.
feel like they had this kind of tension going on, but the relationship couldn't work between them.
Sure. Maybe. But just see, it felt like everybody was kind of picking at everybody else.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's where the commentary comes in. That's why this is a satire and a social commentary about everybody stabbing each other in the back.
Right.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Trying to get ahead.
That's why this,
by any means necessary.
and I think that's why this movie's so brilliant, is because of the way that people act towards each other, and in the end, what ends up happening. And you're like, wow, yeah. That's how people treat each other, even when they're quote unquote friends, talking behind each other's back and being jealous of them and petty.
Right.
Yeah.
So they start playing this game called Bodies, 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 and the premise.
It's werewolf.
Oh, is that what it's?
The game is werewolf. I mean, they take a shot each one and then smacks or hits the person next to them. I don't know about that part, but the game is called Werewolf, and then that turned into a game. And Among Us is the most popular version of Werewolf.
Yeah.
Among Us is now super famous. It's a computer and video game where you're out in outer space, and it's an overhead view of the spaceship, and it's procedurally generated, so all the different rooms change. You don't know what the level looks like, but one person's the killer, and then everyone else has to run away, and then if someone gets killed, you regroup, and people can type what they think happened, and they have to vote people to that is the killer.
Okay.
And then if you vote the wrong person, that that person loses and is out of the game, but the killer's still out there. So that's all based on this game Werewolf. But when I was watching, again, because of my son, I'm like, this is Among Us, which is Werewolf. He said Among Us. I'm like, it's Werewolf, Among Us. And then I like that Lee Pace goes, you guys were playing Werewolf. Like, he knows, because his generation
played Werewolf.
Being in his late 30s, early 40s, he knows the game. Like, you play it out in the dark or whatever. Sure. The campsite, Werewolf is just a old traditional game. And so I like that they called it out, not trying to be like, we invented this game. By like, yeah, it's a little different, but they tell you in the movie, we get
to trademark Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Right. Yeah. This is a little bit something So they're playing that.
So, yeah, we find Lee Pace they find a dead body.
But the other red herring, too, real quick, just to set up. So you've got Max punched David, and he's gone.
Yes, that's right.
B is, like, she's quiet. You don't quite know what's going on. Oh, I texted my mom, who's she really talking to? We don't know. And then here, when they're doing the take a shot punch person, David, because he's threatened by Greg, clocks him. Like, he punches him hard. And you're supposed to do a slap, and they say hard. Everyone's like, ow, that hurt. But he punches
him.
Greg.
That's true.
And so Greg shakes it off, but you're thinking, what's up with this
I will
guy?
say, like, Lee Pace has moments in this where he's super chill or super whatever, and man, when he turns it on, it's like, oh, you are terrifying.
He's 6'5" and hulking. He is intimidating. You would not want to mess with him.
Yeah,
and he's a super friendly, chill guy, like you said, but punching him, and you're like, oh crap.
He has this really good subtext to his performance where where like you can tell he's like, I'm around a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Like, from his standpoint, I know that they're not kids, but they're
him,
early 20s. But to him, they're kids, and so he's like, "I'm giving you some latitude because I know you're young." Yeah. Like, you can see that he's being chill, but he doesn't want to be.
You get one,
yeah,
and you're not going to get another one.
And the story goes because is it Allie? Is the Rachel Sennott character? Yeah. She says. Because he's a vet.
He's a vet.
And then everyone's like, oh, he's Afghanistan or
Iraq, whatever.
And so
it just drops.
Yeah, and so we have this idea. He's this huge guy who is, you're not quite sure, like, is he really chill or does he have ulterior motives?
I think she calls him G.I. Joe as well.
She calls him G.I. Joe, and we hear that he's a vet. So we're like, okay, something might be off.
I've seen
with
The
guy.
Guest. I know how this goes.
Right. I was kind of thinking, that one too.
Basically, you find a dead body, you yell bodies, 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 you turn the lights back on, then you fade. Same deal. This is what, and again, they say in the beginning, like, well, I don't want to play that because every time we play this, Emma starts crying. We all start fighting. Like, I don't want to play it, but they end up playing it anyway. Sure enough, that's exactly what starts happening. They start accusing each other.
And this is we've got two more red herrings. This movie's so good about confusing you about who the killer is. Emma now is really upset. David is being a huge jerk and basically saying that, oh, she just cries. She's not really
crying. She's an actress.
He's saying mean stuff, and he's like, she's just an actress. She's fake crying, where clearly she's upset by what's going on.
Or is she?
Well, or we don't know.
Right,
but
that's the thing, is we don't know.
I think she's upset. But, everyone's questioning that, and then they're like, no, it was David. I vote. And everyone, because he's being a jerk, says he's the killer.
Right.
And he gets super mad because he wasn't. We know now he wasn't. And he's like, dude, I'm just speaking the truth here. She's being whatever. And now you're voting me off. And he gets mad and smashes something.
Well, he takes a very aggro thing to do is he punches like a piece of like a vase or something, a vase, if you will.
on the
Well,
mantle.
with that kind of money, it's a vase.
That's fair. Yeah. And then as he's walking out, he punches the door.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay,
So
cool.
he leaves the game.
Right.
Greg, who was the first that was
He
killed.
was like, I'm going to go to bed.
yeah. He's like, I'm out of here.
This is ridiculous. So they start playing again, and then we have kind of had this. We've been told through news footage or people talking that a storm is coming. So the storm arrives and knocks out the power. This is an interesting thing because they keep asking Sophie where things are. Like, where's this? Do they have a gun? Do they have this?
Right.
Do they have
She's
that?
David's best friend.
Right. And there are moments where I was like, okay, like we know that she's been cut off from her trust fund at this point, right? Do we know that?
Yes.
Or maybe not. Maybe because she says, "Did you have a chance to talk to my parents?" But we don't know
so maybe
why.
we don't know why yet, but
we
there's
know that
something going on.
We know
with
that
her.
Sophie has knowledge of this house, so you're just like, okay, like
Is
maybe
she orchestrating this whole thing to try to get the money or whatever,
or
get
whatever,
back at her
or
friends
do
for
something.
betraying her?
Yeah,
right.
there's a flick called April Fool's Day. Yeah, April Fool's Day. That is this kind of the same premise where
the hair with the the slip knot in the hair.
But
it's like, I mean, I've never seen it, but I know that cover.
Spoilers for that movie. It starts off as a slasher, and all these people start dying. And it turns out at the end, it's April Fool's Day, and everybody comes back at the end.
Yeah, I've seen a clip from that
And
where everyone at the end
that's-
comes in and is like,
yes,
oh,
and
April
it was
Fools.
people were not happy with that ending. And that's where I thought we were going with this.
Yeah.
Is for a long time I was like, okay, this is going to be one of those ones where this has been a setup the entire time for B to initiate her into the group.
Yeah.
And then we get to
Emma is the third.
the Lee Pace one, and I was like, well, this is no longer.
Well,
a
I guess
joke.
we should see the
What
first
happened-
kill that
yes,
happens.
the first kill is B is walking around in the basement. She's trying to go to the bathroom, and she looks out this glass door, and we see Pete Davidson kind of like grasping at his throat, and she thinks she's being kind of funny, and then he pulls his hand away, and he's got this massive neck wound, and he's just bleeding
It's
everywhere.
the classic person bleeding out against a window.
Yeah,
slam
just so you
against
can
a
like
window,
run
jump.
your
Yeah.
hands down
Yeah.
the window. Yeah. So now everybody thinks it's a joke, but they realize it's not a joke.
They go outside and he's dying.
He's dead. Yeah, right. I guess he's
Yeah.
actively dying, and he dies. I do think it's kind of messed up they leave his body outside, but whatever.
Well, they say don't move it. That's evidence.
I guess that's true. Don't you watch SVU? Which I was
Yeah.
like, that's a good line.
So
Like,
they're
I
all
like
trying. I
that.
mean, again, these are
Also, I was like, SVU is the sexual
The sex
crime
one, yeah.
but okay.
But
These-
for them, that's the one that's been on forever.
I guess that's true.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's totally
the other
fair.
Law and Order's been off the air for like almost a decade. I know they just brought it back, but you know.
No, right. You're
But
totally right.
The other thing is too, and this is another commentary. These are a bunch of young kids that are rich and have everything done for them. They don't know how to handle this situation.
Right, that's fair.
I mean, this is a situation most people couldn't handle. But I mean, they're just lost. They're partying. They're doing drugs. We should say they're drinking, doing lines or
Snorting
whatever,
coke.
taking pills. They're just doing non-stop drugs, like
Right.
crazy amounts.
Yeah.
Which is again like a commentary. This is just normal for their partying.
But
And-
also, it is a commentary on how if friends they are, because they know that their friend is in rehab or
Mm-hmm.
came out of rehab, and they'll just openly drink and do drugs in front of her, which is a comment that she makes.
which is
later.
another thing
Yeah.
that Sophie brings up. So when you guys do it, it's just
When
partying.
the white girl does it, it's all right.
And when the
but
black girl does
right.
it, she's got a problem and has to go to rehab.
Right.
So another commentary on the war on drugs, people that are locked up in jail
Sure.
for marijuana use.
Oh, yeah.
It again. So this movie has a lot to say. I think it's very smart in the way that it lays
Yeah,
it all
I
out
can
through
see
these
that for sure.
characters.
our group gathers back up, and they realize that Greg is the only one that's not there, and Max. But Max is they keep dropping Max's name just randomly to make sure you don't forget about him. So they go to the room, can't find Greg. They're walking around. They end up stumbling into.
Well, they find his go bag.
Oh,
So
that's right. That's right.
People in the military probably most often, and with their thought that he's a vet.
I've got one.
Yeah, so people, law enforcement, military would be the type that would probably have a go bag, not just your average Joe.
Hey now.
So they find that he's got a go bag, which includes a map, the house is circled on there, and a knife.
and all kinds of stuff.
So they're like, "What the hell is this?" They're like, "It's Greg. Greg
Right.
is killing people."
Then it's kind of interesting how fast they jump from person to person.
Mhm.
So they can't find Greg in the room. They go down to like this gym. They find Greg in like a purge mask.
Yeah, it's a good scare.
It is a good one where he's like, "Why didn't you answer?" He's like, "I had my earbuds in. Like I didn't hear
and
anything."
I think it's smart that, as the viewer, we're more rational. We're looking from the outside. Our friend didn't just die and we're in a hurricane, right? And so we're looking and we're like, he's got a white shirt on. It's
No
totally
blood.
dry. Yeah, there's no blood anywhere. He just looks clean. His hair is kept or whatever. So we're like, that dude has been sleeping. Like, he didn't just murder someone. Like, he's just been sleeping.
Yeah, he was not outside.
He looks perfect. Yeah.
But as soon as they, like, it is crazy though, when he stands up and he's surrounded by these women, he is a massive. You don't realize.
Because Pete Davidson's tall.
That's what I'm saying. You don't realize how tall he is next to
But-
Pete Davidson. But when he's around
Under
people
6
of
foot
average
yeah.
height, you're just like, Jesus,
Yeah,
this
6'5"
guy
is big.
Massive.
He's a huge guy.
huge. And they start to gang up on him.
They
like,
surround him. So
one-
he realizes, he's like, this is not. And then he thinks, oh, you're playing the game.
You're messing with me. You're messing with me.
I'm dead. Already. Ooh, I'm dead.
But the scene that I was thinking was the scene with Pete Davidson where he realized, like, Lee Pace kind of says the best defense is a good offense, and Pete Davidson kind of starts leaning into him about that, and he's like, they realize that it's becoming contentious, and Lee Pace stands up, and like his face changes, and he was like, he gets in Pete Davidson's face, and he is menacing as F in that scene, and he gets like that here too.
That's the real red herring, because that's when he goes to bed. He decides to remove himself from the situation. But Pete Davidson clearly, even though he's outmatched, Lee Pace would wipe the floor with him
without question.
But he, again, I'm rich. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
He has that personality of like, I'm whatever. I'm the best. So Lee Pace removes himself, but then you're like, well, he's gone now. People are going to start dying. So
he's Sydney's dad from Scream 1. We're like, hey, what happened to that guy?
Yeah.
So
they confront him.
That's right. They confront him, and then they circle up on him, and he kind of takes these. I'm not going to use the word girls, but to him they are girls. Start to like try to gang up on him, and he's just throwing them around like it's nobody's problem. But then he's standing there, he's got this knife in his hand, and all of a sudden you hear like a funk, like that's the sound effect that they use, and he just kind of stops, and all of a sudden you start to see like blood kind of trickle from his forehead, and he drops to his knees.
He's in shock,
and we see B with a kettlebell like in her hand, and then does he get back up?
Yeah, he starts
hits
moving
him,
again,
and
and
she
she
clocks him again, and I was like, well. This is not April Fool's Day, and if it was,
great.
now we don't know what's going to happen.
Which is so beautiful, because now it's the question of like, was this
beautiful?
Be beautiful.
I love it.
Now.
So the question comes now: was this self-defense? Now this girl, no matter what, like they're in this situation, and
It's like the first hit is self-defense.
Second one,
The second one, I don't think so.
right, and also she's not rich. She doesn't come from this world. Now you have this outsider who has murdered someone, whether it was in defense or not. He's dead.
right?
But she also murdered another outsider.
correct.
True.
Correct.
So you
If you're
start
gonna
thinking.
if that's what I would start doing, start taking out the people that don't belong, and then work your way in.
But I love what it does for that thought process as these characters start dying, because you're like, okay, Pete Davidson died. We don't know who the killer is, but he's been murdered. Now you have B who's killed someone, and she's going to have to explain.
And we know that B did that, like right. So
Right.
we see that.
So,
happen.
Right.
but is she the killer capable of killing someone else? Was this self-defense? Was it really self-defense?
Right.
And so this movie keeps you guessing as people get picked off. You're like, well, not them.
Right.
And I love that different people probably think it's someone else, which is how these Werewolf Among Us games happen.
Right.
Other people think it's someone else. The killer obviously has to lie about it, but people are picking people, and you pick the wrong one, and boop, they're out of the game, and
You're
they
gone.
weren't the killer. So
Right.
that's what they're doing.
So Emma at this point is a mess because her boyfriend is dead. So I think Sophie ends up giving her, or maybe Emma. No, the other. Who's the vapid one?
She does give Emma the
Somebody
pills,
gives
but
Emma.
she's the third to die.
That's right. Somebody gives Emma Xanax, basically.
Oh, and now at this point, the men are killed off. It's all women.
Yeah, all
so
women.
just to know, so we had the
Except for
men as a
Max.
part of this group. Well, yeah, Max is nowhere to be
Right.
seen, but in the house now, it's a story of women.
Yes. So they give Emma the Xanax, and again, lights are out, and the people are trying to walk around the house.
They're all turning on each other at this point.
quickly turning on each other.
So they're, Sophie.
Oh,
is,
this what it is they're in that room, and Sophie, who has now broken her sobriety,
yeah.
kind of goes after Emma
Yeah.
and says, you didn't like him, you didn't really, you just stuck with him because you wanted somebody, blah 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 blah.
Because she's sad about her best friend. Her best friend David has died, and now she's able to say all these things
Right.
because of the situation. She's
Right.
like, yeah, you treated him like crap. You stayed with him and didn't care about him, didn't love him, and she lays that all out.
Yes.
And then
and then they
Emma's-
kick, and then this is where they kick B out right? Because they kick B out of the house.
No, because Emma has to die first. So
Is that
what
right?
happens is then they're all in the dark and they're all kind of scared and confused and everything, of course, with the situation. And then Emma stumbles into Sophie, and Sophie starts apologizing to her.
That's right.
And Emma kisses.
And she's like, I thought
Sophie.
this is what you wanted. And she was like, what are you talking about?
And she hands her those pills, though, to calm her down because of the situation.
I think she'd already
And
taken
then she
them.
walks off.
Either way, she takes meds and she walks off. We're again with.
Well, we see her snorting something, don't we?
We see Sophie snorting something. Yes,
But
and
she
I think
gives
that
Emma
was the
pills,
cocaine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we hear a sound up in the distance. We hear a scream and a fall, and we come back and we find Emma has fallen. Well, looks like she has fallen down the steps, and now her head is caved in, and now she is dead. And then this is where they turn on B, where they tell B to go up. Sophie tells B to go upstairs, change her clothes. This was the weird part for me, where I'm watching it and I was like, why is she putting on makeup? And they reference it and they never say anything about it.
Because she's not rich and she's in rich people clothes. She's in David's parents' clothes, and I think she just wanted to feel like one of them.
Very weird.
But it's to throw you off too. How in this situation where people are dying around her, how can someone be sitting there putting on makeup? It's to throw you off.
Right. It works.
But from her perspective, again, I mean, people deal with things in different ways. She's in this horrible situation, but she's changed into what she found in the closet, or rich people clothes.
Yeah.
And she puts them on, and then she sees the vanity. And
Why
I
didn't
think
she get her
just
own clothes?
What's that?
Why didn't she get her own clothes?
Well, they're out in the
They're out in the
car
car,
in a
and it's
duffel
pouring down
bag.
rain.
Yeah, and in a
Oh,
hurricane.
she brought all that in.
No, because we
okay,
see
okay.
later her
That's
bag's
right.
in the.
That's right.
But so I think she wanted to feel like one of the rich people. We've got all these rich, fancy people around her, and she's an outsider. So it was a little bit of her dealing with the trauma, but also like, what is with this person?
She's a little strange.
Because that is something that we see even in. This isn't really a spoiler because this person is. I think this person's the killer or whatever. But in X with Pearl.
Yeah. Did you see that trailer?
No, I didn't watch the.
Oh man!
No, but it's like we see this scene of like Pearl putting on makeup, and it's this very eerie thing where obviously she's killing people, but then she wants to feel beautiful, and she's putting on makeup, and it's just kind of disconcerting.
Comes out this
because
October.
That's cool. In
Pearl.
one year they did the movie and the prequel.
The prequel.
Yeah.
So. Right.
B comes down.
B comes down, and they're like, "What are you doing?"
And she came from up top where Emma fell.
Right.
So
Sophie turns on her.
Alice.
Everybody turns on her. Basically, I think that the upper middle class gal leads the charge to get people to think that it could be B, and they end up like pushing her out of the house.
Yeah.
And B.
And even Sophie's there. And
that's what I'm saying. Like,
because they're like,
she doesn't stand
we
up
don't
for
know
her.
her. We don't know anything about her.
How long have you known her? She lied about where she went to school. She lied about this. She lied about that.
See, behind the back, they're doing the I checked your records. Like, when you show up, like us, like normal people at a party, we don't show up and run background checks, right?
Yeah.
So now these rich kids they see an outsider come. They got to look up everything about them. Where they go to school? Do they have any history online or whatever? So they've done this whole search on her and said, no one graduated from Wesleyan or whatever.
Well, she's like, there's no record of you anywhere. We should also say that earlier in the movie, this will come up right now. B is like going through somebody's clothes are on the bed or something, and she picks up what looks like a sports bra or like a fancy like lacy bra. And what is this character's name?
Jordan.
Jordan says, "Hey, that's mine. Put that down."
Yeah,
and she puts it down.
Well, it's funnier because they're looking for Greg, and she's like, I don't think he's hiding in my bra.
That's what it was, yeah, right.
Because they're going through his room or whatever, or one of the rooms.
Right.
And,
So B gets to her car. She opens up a duffel bag to change because she's soaking wet. She changes clothes, and she reaches in and she finds a bra that is very similar. Is it underwear?
It's underwear.
Oh,
It's underwear.
I thought it was another
It
bra.
matches.
That makes more sense. I was like, why would she have two? But whatever.
all crumpled up, and I think that she can tell that
it's the same style as the.
She's
was weird.
I know, but that's what I mean. Just have to state it. This is what happens.
But
in
it
the
is
movie.
the same color as the bra.
Right.
Yes.
She knows that it matches, and
Right. So B ends up making her way back in. As she's kind of like making her way to the house, we see her again. It's a pretty slick identifier as to who this character is because Jordan has like the GoPro on her head,
the go bag light,
the
lamp.
Yeah. So like when you see that moving around, you're like, okay, so we know what character that is without having to see that character.
But we see her peering into the windows, and
and we see that
Jordan
grabs a gun.
has a gun.
So
And we're supposed to believe no one has guns, right? And there's a little political commentary thrown in there.
So we end up seeing a doggy door earlier in the movie, which, shockingly enough, comes back into play here.
What do you know?
Yeah. I will say that's a big ass doggy door.
And probably had a big Doberman or something.
I don't know, but like I've never seen a doggy door have a tunnel.
Well, but you don't live in a mansion.
That's also
they
true.
don't want the outside, whatever, anywhere close to their house. Like, you know what I mean? It has to walk through
That's totally
clean
fair.
your paws on the way.
Yeah, right. So B crawls through the dog door. She comes back through, and people, the three of them. So we've got
Alice, Jordan, and Sophie.
and Sophie are left. B kind of walks in, and she was like, "Look, I'm sorry. I did lie. You know that I went to school for a while, but my mom was having issues. You know, she has."
It's a clinical term, but I can't remember what it is, but I think it stands
But either
for
way, like it sets off a red
multiple
flag to
personalities.
Jordan, where she's like
borderline.
borderline.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Isn't that like a dissociative type?
Borderline personality disorder.
Borderline
Right, that's what I'm
personality
saying,
disorder.
yeah.
It's not dissociative, but it's very manipulative.
Okay.
And he'll gaslight you and
Right.
Yeah.
But that's
Which
what
that's the other thing about this movie is they are using those terms.
Yeah.
Gaslight, trigger,
Oh, yeah.
toxic.
that scene where they all like finally
Start
are in a room
firing
yelling,
off the
oh
words.
my god, that
Yeah.
is the highlight of the film.
I agree. I was like, oh, okay. Now I think I know what movie this is.
That's where Pete Davidson starts saying gaslighting is not even real because they say
Well, that's earlier. I meant
this scene right now.
the scene.
oh, this is the scene where you're supposed to be like,
Yeah.
they're all these social
Yeah.
justice,
Yeah.
whatever. But that was really mean and awful when they're all like, you're gaslighting her, David. And he goes, gaslighting's not real, which he's gaslighting.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Which I thought was very clever writing that someone, again, with I'm rich, I can do no wrong, everyone loves me, would be the type of person that would go, gaslighting's not real, blah, 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 blah. It's
Yeah.
like, you're trying to gaslight them.
You are gaslighting.
There's no self-awareness.
So B ends up putting all the entire truth out there. She's like, my mom has borderline. I couldn't stay in school because she was having a lot of issues. I worked at
The mall.
the video game place. They closed our location like a week before.
Probably was a nod to the whole Among Us thing or something. They chose a video game store. I don't know.
Okay. She says they closed their location maybe like a week before they met, and I didn't want to embarrass you. And Sophie hears her and like accepts it. And this is where she tells Jordan, she was like, she being B rats on Jordan, says she's got a gun. And they're like, she's like, no, I don't have it. And she takes all the stuff out of her pockets. And of course, one of the things that falls out is the X that donates or designates. Thank you.
Denotes.
Denotes. That's what I was looking for. Who the killer is in this game. And she's like, it's not me. B does her whole thing. They embrace. And then here comes Jordan with the gun. And of course, we know that, there's a fight ensues. And
well, at this point, they very much turned on each other, and this is
except for Sophie and B. Like, though, I feel like those two kind of came back in that moment.
Well, yeah, they're all kind of unsure of each other. But you're right. But they all start with Alice and with Jordan. They're all turning on each other. And Tom, like he mentioned, with that really good scene, this is a commentary on how people are so wrapped up in trying to be politically correct and all these things that they're turning on each other and not actually taking the time to talk to each other and believe each other.
They're
listening. Just like, they're just trying to be like, oh, I know what the right thing is to do here. And
they start ragging on Alice's podcast because it turns out that Jordan, she's like, and basically, so Jordan says to B, I had sex with her yesterday. Like, check her texts. And
tell her,
and we
tell
know,
B that we hooked up on the way down here.
We know that there is a pair of underwear like in this bag. So now we know that Sophie isn't exactly the most honorable person either, right? You can forgive the drug addiction because she went to rehab.
Sure.
She's trying to get her life back together. But now you have an opportunity to tell the truth, and you choose not to tell the truth again.
They've only been together for 6 weeks
Something
or
like
something.
that, yeah.
It's a new relationship, but long enough to where they're together. They are a couple.
Right? She said, "I love you."
She said, "I love you" to B.
Yes.
Yeah.
B didn't say it
No,
back.
she did not.
But yeah.
Yeah, but then beginning, I think that's also, I know that it lingers a bit, but I was going to say in the beginning, that scene is to show that like they're in the throes of this. It's a passionate relationship.
Yeah.
They clearly care about each other in some regard, and Sophie does so much that says, I love you, and you believe that. But now you see this, and you're like, well, wait a minute.
Maybe not. Maybe she is the narcissist. That was the other one that they threw around. So
the podcast thing. Did you just feel a little bit of a knife?
A little bit.
I mean,
a little bit.
I mean, talk about commentaries on different types of people and different things they do.
Yeah.
This one was about people that have podcasts.
Right. Yeah.
You do your little podcast, and
I do.
There's a lot of work that goes into a podcast.
Oh my
She's
God!
not
I was
wrong.
like,
she's not wrong.
Schedule guests, and
I know.
Put it into a Google Calendar.
Oh my God! I mean, because I was like, "Yep, that's me right there." It's a lot of work that goes into a podcast. Oh, so that was clearly a little.
One of the things I did like is she would mention the title, and Jordan would have like a reaction to the title, and she's like, "Did you just?"
Yeah.
She goes, "Did you just huff at the title?" And I think Sophie was like, "Say it again," and she was like, smart friends with whatever, and she goes. Pfft. She's like, you did it again. She's like,
she rolled her eyes. It like Jordan could not help but have a physical,
just the disdain she has,
visceral reaction.
Yeah, right.
To, I mean, she could not hide it.
And this is where Alice just starts going crazy, starts yelling at her, and Jordan.
This is the first time we've seen Alice, a character who again is neutral, who is nice to everybody, but it's clearly an act. She has thoughts.
Yes.
And Jordan has been talking bad about her podcast behind her back.
Yes.
That Sophie's letting it slip that she's talking bad about.
I don't think she let it slip. She made sure to tell her.
Right.
Because Jordan told
about the
sex
hookup.
Yeah.
Right. So now Alice is pissed.
Right. And that's secrets are no fun.
Yeah. And she goes off, and this is your parents. You think that you're living as rags to riches. Your parents are upper middle class.
And it shoots her in the shin.
They're not. They're professors at the university.
It's public.
At a public university. Where this is us as outsiders going like, oh my God, the way that they,
And then she shoots, Jordan shoots Alice in the shin. And she's like, did you just shoot me? She's like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. She's like, yes, you did. You just shot me. She's like, I didn't shoot you.
No, I didn't.
And then this is hard because if in situations like this, it's like you're trying to be as de-escalating as possible, right? Where Alice is not. Yeah. Alice is like walking up, getting in her space, and Jordan has this gun. She's flailing at her. There's a fight for the gun between all four of them at this point. There's a dog pile, and then the gun goes off, and of course, Alice has had her brains blown out.
And you don't know. And
we
again,
don't
at this
know
point,
who did,
we don't know. Is the killer? Was it an accident? She says, I don't know what happened. I did not pull a trigger.
But but the gun is in her hand.
But I mean, if people are piling each other and they're trying to grab for the gun, I just mean that she's saying, I did not mean to kill her. I did not shoot her. I sound exactly like Tommy from the. I did not shoot her. I did not. I mean, I'm just saying these words. I'm like, oh man, those are the lines from the room. So she's saying I didn't, but we're not sure. And is the killer in this group? And did they mean to kill her?
The killer is in this group. Oh, I see what you're saying.
No, we as audience members are like, we don't know. This movie keeps you guessing every time someone dies. Now, do we believe Jordan? Is Jordan the killer, or is one of them the killer and pulled the trigger and acted like they didn't?
But Jordan ends up with the gun.
Sophie walks up the stairs, backing her up.
Yeah, backing her up. Again, just like I'm like, hey, stop! Like, what are you doing?
I know.
Quit.
I'm like, that's the easiest way to get shot.
Yeah, no
She's
kidding.
pointing a gun at Sophie, and Sophie's just like, hey.
And then out of note, like when they get to the top of the staircase, here comes B out of like another.
How did B get up there and through it? Like
she must have gone a different way,
right? Because they're on a staircase.
I don't know. Which is a red flag for B, right? Because she's figured out a way around this house without.
Somehow she went up another staircase and through rooms to get I don't know how she got to it, but.
So,
or maybe we were just so concentrated on them backed up the stairs and into the hallway or whatever that maybe she just snuck up the stairs.
Yeah,
but it was out of nowhere.
There's a fight here for the gun. And I think, B ends up throwing Jordan over the edge of the railing through a table. I guess that's what that was.
Yeah, of all beer
bottles or whatever.
Cans.
And the last, she's just like shooting up in the air, like
check her text. Boom.
Okay,
boom,
so
boom.
this is what I thought. I thought she was talking to Sophie.
Oh, I did too.
Oh, you didn't think she was talking?
Think she was saying for the mom thing? Like, is it really?
I thought she was telling Sophie, check her text.
No, I think she was telling B because she cheated on her.
But that's the red herring, right? You could take that both ways.
You could. I didn't. Yeah, no,
that's the way I thought. Where
that's
I was like,
interesting.
there's something in the text that's not.
I think it all just comes back to now. You two are the last ones left. She knows that there were three of them. She's dying out, and she's like, check her text to see if you can trust Sophie.
Right.
Was my read.
When we know, and we all know that we can't. Right. She's lying about sleeping with Jordan
as a murderer. But you're right. Right.
Yeah.
They've all have these little red flags. Again, that's this whole movie, which is so brilliant, is they've all got reasons not to trust
Right.
him.
Yeah.
There's reasons to think they're all the killer. And as they start dying off, you're like, oh, well,
Not that one.
We're kind
Not
of
that
running
one.
out of people. So at this point, it's like, God, Max has got to show up. Is it Max pulling the strings? Because
Right.
I did not believe it was Sophie or B, even though Sophie has some motives with the money stuff. It's like, I'm like, God, when is Max going to pop up?
So the storm at this point has relented. Day is starting to break through. Now we're down to Sophie and B, and they're in like this closet or whatever, and Sophie tries to like embrace her, and B is like standoffish and pushing her away.
Well, she thinks she's trying to attack her, right? She
Oh,
reaches to touch
see,
her
I
face, and she thinks she's hitting her. And she like, it isn't just she doesn't want her to touch her. She's just like, she thinks she's scared of her.
They don't trust each other.
Sure.
at
Well,
this
I
point.
think Sophie trusts B,
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
but not the other way
But
around.
we don't know. At this point, we thought Sophie could be the killer.
Sure.
We don't know. I mean, we just don't know. And then there's this definite distrust going on. But you're right. Sophie is trying to maybe killing her, right? Like, we don't
Right.
know if it looks like she's embracing.
Right.
but-
So we end up getting outside, and how does B like trick? Does B trick
Well,
Sophie?
she says she has the gun. She goes and picks
that's
up the
what
gun.
it is. That's right. That's right.
And
that's
we
right.
don't know.
We
And
didn't know that she had the gun.
Sophie, like, it's another kind of jump scare where Sophie comes, but to hug her.
Right.
And she's like, hey. And then B's like,
Give me
I've
your
been
phone.
looking for you. Not really, And she gets away from her and points a gun.
Yeah.
And
She
she's-
says, "Let me see your phone."
Yeah.
And she was like, "No." And I was like, that's it. Like if I,
Right?
like if you've got nothing to hide, show me the phone. Okay, but
Right.
if
Which
you-
is a great double. I mean, it's a head fake because it's like, no, she just doesn't want to show she's cheated on her.
of course.
But we're thinking like, is it Max on the phone?
Oh no!
saying-
But so I even took it as like that. I took it as I'm good. This relationship is over because now you're going to find out that I cheated on you.
Right.
But you're right though. There could be other texts in there that say
that's what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
reason. No, it was like, I don't want you to see that I cheated on you. But is
Right.
it like, are we going to find something else on there?
Sure. So she tosses her phone, and of course they both go after it. I was like, what phone is going to work after it goes in the pool? But
Yeah.
whatever. Also, what phone is going to work after it's been in a hurricane covered
Well,
in
the
mud?
new
Phones are-
iPhones are waterproof. and
Are they
this-
mud proof?
But this group would have the newest.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
baddest
fair. That's fair.
phone.
Phones last a lot longer than they used to.
That's a good point.
For sure.
I still have an iPhone 3 that my kid plays with.
So
So
another
she-
cool
you-
underwater shot, like we see in the beginning with
Those
the
are,
people
and I will say
underwater.
those are cool shots.
It's cool photography.
Yeah. So, B gets out of the water first, and they're scrambling, and she grabs this phone, and they go to open it, and Sophie's like, "That's not my phone," and they look over at Pete Davidson.
B is very resourceful.
But I think I liked this scene where she just like plucks his eyes open,
Yeah.
and uses it for the face.
and you hear the
like,
noise, click, that unlock sound of an iPhone.
And this whole thing.
Oh my God! When this happens, when we see him outside with the machete,
So we should say earlier in the movie,
Greg.
takes this giant sword and
Who I
does
don't think we ever addressed is not a veteran. He's
a vet.
veterinarian.
He's a veterinarian.
He's the one that
and
has to.
they applied all these stereotypes of like he's got PTSD and he's got guns and he's got all these things and
Yeah, it was a really great conversation.
You call
Like,
him
it
G.I.
has to
Joe.
be-
She's like, yeah, did you look at him?
yeah, you said he's a vet, a veterinarian, a veterinarian's assistant.
That is
I think she said.
a pretty good. That's
Yeah.
a pretty.
But
I
that
like
was
yeah.
hilarious. You call him G.I. Joe.
Well, she's like, "Did you
look
look at him?"
Yeah, that was a really great one. But but he's showing not in a bad way at all. But he's like he's cool
He's a cool guy.
He's cool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so they get this expensive bottle of champagne, and David's
takes
like,
the
"No,
sword
I
and he,
told
like-
you we're not open that." Yeah, and he takes the sword and pops
Pops
the
it.
bottle
Yeah, right,
with
right,
it.
right.
And so he's like, "It's not that cool."
So there's a whole TikTok
TikTok.
draft in Pete Davidson's phone of him trying to do the bottle, and what does he do? Cuts his own throat on accident.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
He slits his throat on accident, and
That's
that
it.
accident leads to all of this
It
mayhem.
started the whole thing.
Right.
Yes.
There is no killer.
There
which
is none.
Just,
Well, there is one.
Well, now, but
No,
there-
but
yeah,
the
but,
killer.
but there's not a killer at large going
Correct.
around
no. There's
picking them off.
There's a lot of killers.
Yeah.
I mean, they all killed each other.
I don't think
in
did
some
Sylvie
way.
kill anybody? No, she didn't.
Well, in a way, she gave.
I guess she gave
illegal
that's right,
drugs
she
to
gave
someone
Emma,
who tripped
yeah,
down the
that's
stairs.
right. That's right. She gave the drugs to Emma.
In a way, they all became killers.
Yeah.
and killed each other over this misunderstanding, which
Yeah.
again is the commentary on the whole thing.
Yes.
They're so wrapped up in themselves and trying to go behind each other's backs and all this stuff to where they couldn't stop for a second and
Nope.
figure this out. which is just brilliant. The ending elevated it for me.
Yeah,
I
I would
enjoyed
agree.
it, but when that hit,
It's a great
Agreed.
it's a great twist ending.
Yeah.
And then when Max walks through and he can, everything's a mess because of the storm, right? There's mud and muck and trees everywhere, and there's Sophie and B, and they're also covered in muck because they've been like crawling through the mud and fighting. And he was just like, "What did I miss?" And then I think Sophie has a line as well, but I can't remember
I don't
what it
think so.
was.
B
but
has the last
it just
line.
like cuts to credits.
well, B has the last line because you hear the
I can
phone
explain.
ding ding ding. She's getting all the messages.
I have
Yeah.
reception.
I have reception.
I have
have
reception,
reception.
and that's how the movie ends. I think there's a lot of this that I was not a huge fan of, and I had a hard time getting into. But I will say, there's that great scene of them rattling off the what do you call them, like the trending words,
Yeah.
and then there's the twist at the end. I think is also fantastic. But yeah, this is, if you like Ready or Not, or You're Next, or Home Alone, or Clue, like this has a lot of Clue kind
Yeah.
of influence.
Yeah, Clue's the other one. I was thinking this is very Clue or Agatha Christie, like
Yeah.
the Murder on the Orient
Yeah,
Express.
yeah,
It's a whodunit.
Yeah, and everybody's locked in a room, in a house.
and you got to figure it out.
So you have this
Yeah.
finite pool of people to
But
pick from.
Very
Sure.
much Clue, and I'm glad you said it because that's the one. I saw Ready or Not in my head. I was thinking, but Clue's the one I thought of because, the butler locks them in the house.
Right,
and they're
right,
locked
right,
in.
right.
These kids are locked in because of the hurricane and all the power's been cut. So like the big gate is closed, locked shut. They can't get out.
And of course, B left that's another thing where I was like, okay, B leaves the visor down, which drains the battery, which I was like, I don't think that would work, but
yeah.
maybe.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. That's a pretty small amount of power to pull from a car battery.
Well,
That's what I
no,
thought, too.
but when you pull down the visor with the thing, sometimes more lights go on in the car. Like maybe the car cabin lights.
Either
stay
way,
on or
I was
something.
like, she did it on purpose.
Yeah.
She left it down on purpose to, as a red flag earlier.
Oh, you
in the
thought
movie.
like
Yeah,
a red herring.
Yeah, to kill the car.
That was a great shot. Again,
Yeah.
this movie looks really good. The
Yeah.
cinematography was great, and that's a shot from inside the car. And B leaves that down, and then you see her walking to the house from the car, and it stays in the cabin.
Right.
And at the time, you might not catch it, but it's focusing on that being down.
It is.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
later, you're like,
It lingers long enough for you to go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It was clever.
If you dig those movies, I think, and you can tolerate the Gen Z stuff, I think this will be
I don't
right up
think
your
it's something to tolerate. I think it's a selling point. Like I thought it was clever.
alley. Once they get to that scene,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm
Right.
with you, but you got to get there.
Well, and
Yeah.
this filmmaker, again, like we said, isn't Gen Z, so it's not like a movie made by Gen Z
But
for
I have,
Gen Z.
but I have been seeing people say like it feels like somebody that understands.
Yeah, she's close enough, I think, in age.
Yeah,
that she
that's-
gets it.
that-
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
probably the writers too.
Right.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I think that there's things in there to appreciate from both sides. I think Gen Z will be able to relate with a certain type of people, and there's multiple types. And then I think older people are like, "Yep, that's how those
That's
kids
how those
are."
kids are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Their wokeness got them killed.
That's right.
Yeah.
But this was clever. I
Yeah.
really, and again, that ending.
So anyway, I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts, BUTTS21. Also, don't forget to check out Binge Movies. Coming
No, you
out.
said at the
You
beginning.
plugged it,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to help. Just trying to make sure.
Nobody
I do the right
makes it
thing.
this far. You said so.
That's true.
This is Kevin. You can follow me on Twitter at Kevin R. Brackett.
And this is Tom. You can follow me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at Facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. Find the show online, Facebook.com/Real Spoilers. And of course, don't forget our Patreon, Patreon.com/Real Spoilers. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, Simon killed Lynette.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you.